Since the first Summit on Sustainable Development in 1972 in Stockholm, environmental issues have slowly crept up the international agenda. The 1992 Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro laid the foundations of green diplomacy. It resulted in the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Every year since 1995, the Conference of Parties to the Convention, known as COP, brings together signatory states to try to combat climate change by reducing emissions. This annual summit also formed the basis for 1997's Kyoto Protocol. The treaty committed 37 industrialized countries to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to 5.2% against 1990 levels by 2012. But no restrictions were imposed on developing countries like China and India, despite both being significant polluters. In 2009, COP15 in Copenhagen failed to deliver a new global treaty. It ended instead with a non-binding agreement to take action to keep temperature increases below 2 degrees Celsius without explaining how this would happen. The COP17 summit in 2011 resulted in the Durban Platform for Enhanced Action, committing countries including the United States and China to deliver a new legally binding agreement in 2015. The 21st Climate Change Conference in Paris, known as COP21, aims to secure the first universally recognized accord to try to limit temperature rise to 2 degrees Celsius. Scientists warn that any increase above this could have devastating consequences.
Very good morning to you, future leaders of Zimbabwe. But I know young people today are disputing that why I say future, we want to be leaders today. I have got a prepared speech, but I will talk to this a bit later. As I was listening to everyone talking, I'm really inspired that we have young people who are in all these institutions doing so much work. But then I asked myself, how come I have not met most of them? I think most of you we are meeting here for the first time, right? Yet I don't know which government arm you are working with, especially when I looked at the areas of interest that you are in, to do with conservation, to do with climate action. All these issues, as far as I know, reside in my ministry. And I know when young people want to come up with excuses, they say, we want a youth desk in the ministry. Even when the minister is youth himself, you still want a youth desk. Are we not looking for excuses? So some bit of background, in case they didn't tell you, Mandu and Kulukulu. We met in Madrid for the first time. And I was saying, but guys, you can't be here representing young people on climate issues and I have not met you. Anyway, I then asked them to what extent they are representing the youth voice in Zimbabwe, and if at all they go back and engage with young people across the country, because these are both technical but also very important issues, which we cannot afford not to share because of the technicality that they are complex issues. So we need to find a way as young people to break them down for any person to understand the importance of climate change and the need for us to come up with adaptation programs. So for me, I'm quite happy that that discussion we had has led to something this big. And as I had a discussion yesterday with Elizabeth, she also highlighted that this is not the end in itself, it's in fact the beginning of more broader consultations and engagements. So I want to encourage all of us who are here to take that challenge of engaging young people in various spheres, just to make sure that we mainstream climate issues in most of our conversations. You know, I deal with conservation a lot, so it's confusing now. I wanted to check how many of us here are at school, tertiary institution, be it college, poly, varsity. So there's good coverage. Okay. I just wanted to confirm that. Anyway, now to my prepared speech. It is my pleasure to deliver these opening remarks at this important event of taking the climate change agenda forward. I would like to start by expressing my appreciation to you all for sparing time from your schedules to come and join this important workshop. I would also like to welcome those joining us virtually, the new norm as we recover from COVID-19 and as we endeavor to maintain strict measures to contain the spread of the pandemic, as it is critical that we remain vigilant and comply with the World Health Organization and our own national guidelines on COVID-19. Ladies and gentlemen, our planet is warming up and we are living in the most critical time of our life due to the effects of climate change. In December last year in Madrid, Spain, I was pleased to see youth representatives from Zimbabwe participating in the 15th Conference of Youth, COY 15, and the 25th Climate Change Conference of the Parties, COP 25. The youths represented other Zimbabwean youths well and they had time to speak at high-level panels alongside other events and made great policy and action-oriented interventions. I understand that 2 of them were supported by my Ministry of Environment, Climate, Tourism and Hospitality Industry in partnership with UNDP Zimbabwe Country Office. I would like to extend my appreciation to all our partners for such tremendous support in engaging our youths into developmental and decision-making processes. Indeed, the future belongs to the youths, hence the need to enhance youth participation for sustainability. Following the 15th Conference of Youth, it is imperative that youth participants give feedback and engage their peers on climate diplomacy and map possible plans of action as national youth basing on the outcomes and experiences from the 2 conferences. That is the reason why we are gathered here. We have to plan and come up with an action plan. The million-dollar question is how innovative and how ready are you in grabbing opportunities offered by this global threat of climate change? We have an opportunity to work together for a common cause and build a more sustainable and prosperous future for everyone. The effects of tropical cyclone Idai are still fresh in our minds with an estimated 270,000 people, including 129,600 children who were affected by the floods according to UNICEF. And this only shows that time is running out. We need to plan and act fast. The country has been experiencing droughts due to unreliable rainfall patterns. The droughts have crippled agricultural production, resulting in food and livelihoods insecurity. This has directly affected vulnerable households in both rural and urban communities. The worst affected are rural households relying on rain-fed agriculture for their livelihoods. This is another clear indication that the climate crisis is real and we need to act now. Due to population increase in urban areas, waste management has been a major problem to deal with. Waste contributes about 5% to our country's greenhouse gas emissions. We need to properly manage waste, change our throw-away mentality, and continuously raise awareness in companies, shops and schools and other institutions, public and private. In line with having a circular economy by 2030, and as a way of making people cautious of their surrounding environment, His Excellency the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, in December 2018, declared the first Friday of each calendar month to be the National Environment Cleanup Day. I would also want to take this opportunity to applaud the work being done by young people in leading this initiative through cleanup campaigns and your initiatives on recycling and reusing waste, playing an important role in value addition of PET bottles, amongst other innovations. As government, we are very much committed to climate action. We also cannot separate the environment from the economy, for the two are intertwined. We recognize that we need to leave future generations a clean, healthy, and wealthy planet. And in order to do that, we need to be very ambitious by moving towards a greener and cleaner future, creating greener jobs for our youth and a stronger economy. A lot of work has been done by government in efforts to climate-proof all socio-economic sectors and put in place proper policy and institutional frameworks. The government developed the National Climate Policy in 2017 and a National Climate Change Response Strategy to guide climate change work in the country. The objective of the policy is to guide climate change management in the country, enhance the national adaptive capacity towards climate resilience, scaling up of mitigation actions, facilitating the domestication of climate-related global policies, and ensuring compliance to the global mechanisms. Various other policies and strategies have been developed and have climate change considerations such as the renewable energy and biofuels policies, the industrial development policy, and the recently launched tourism recovery and growth strategy. We probably are all aware of the recently launched Climate Smart Conservation Agriculture Program, the Fumvudza Intwasa, which will significantly reduce our exposure to volatile rainfall patterns. Various other sectors are implementing the national climate policy in collaboration with the ministry as we design and implement programs and projects together, ensuring that all projects have climate change considerations in their planning and implementation. There are prospects to develop or strengthen climate change legislation that will establish a firm, well-defined institutional structure for climate change management in the country, establish a national climate change funding mechanism, and ensure climate change is mainstreamed in planning and budgetary processes at national and sub-national levels, as well as facilitate access to data for monitoring, reporting, and verification processes. It is important to make the House aware that Zimbabwe is in the process of national adaptation planning with support from the Green Climate Fund Readiness Program. The National Adaptation Planning aims to strengthen adaptation readiness of the country and create an enabling environment for concrete adaptation investment projects. Climate change adaptation will be mainstreamed and integrated into relevant new and existing policies, programs, and activities, in particular, development planning processes and strategies within all relevant sectors at national and sub-national levels as appropriate. Ladies and gentlemen, it is also my pleasure to announce that early this year, the Green Climate Fund approved a 26.6 million US grant on building climate resilience of vulnerable agricultural livelihoods in southern Zimbabwe. The project is set to benefit at least 2.3 million people, mostly women and youths, in the vulnerable provinces of Masvingo, Manicaland, and Matabeleland South, through revitalization of 21 irrigation schemes, enhancing water and soil moisture management and water use efficiency, promoting climate resilience agriculture, improving access to climate information and markets, and building partnerships with public and private sector actors. On another note, Zimbabwe was admitted into the United Nations Climate Change Learning Partnerships Program for Southern Africa and received a grant for the development of a national climate change learning strategy. The country finalized the development of a national climate change learning strategy, which will strengthen learning and skills development to address climate change in Zimbabwe. The strategy is earmarked to be launched before the end of the year, together with the low emissions development strategy. Mainstreaming of climate change in education is key to ensure effective climate change programs implementation. My ministry is in partnership with the ministry responsible for agriculture in rolling out the Climate Smart Agriculture Manual for agricultural training institutions in Zimbabwe. The manual will help in promoting climate and environmentally friendly ways of farming. Climate smart agriculture practices are expected to sustainably increase productivity and resilience, which is adaptation, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, which is mitigation, and enhance achievement of national food security, as well as sustainable development goals. My team is visiting all agriculture colleges, rolling out the manual through training of trainers' workshops to strengthen capacities of lecturers to impact climate smart agriculture practices to trainee extension officers who, upon deployment, will work directly with farmers and convey climate smart agriculture practices. Zimbabwe is among the first countries to sign and ratify the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the UNFCCC, in 1992. The government also ratified the 2015 Paris Agreement and pledged to lower its energy-related emissions by 33% per capita by 2030, below the projected business as usual, through interventions such as adoption of renewable energy and energy-efficient interventions and climate-smart agriculture, among other interventions. This was reflected in the Nationally Determined Contribution, our NDCs, which the country communicated to the UNFCCC Secretariat. Right now, the country is in the process of revising the NDCs, and by the end of this year, we should have communicated our revised NDCs to the UNFCCC. The country developed an economy-wide low emissions development strategy 2020 to 2050 to promote the adoption of cost-efficient ways to make the economy more climate-friendly and less energy-consuming. This strategy is key in achieving the country's emissions reduction commitment. We are going to launch the low emissions development strategy this year, as I've already highlighted, and we need your support in implementing it. Ladies and gentlemen, let us share the climate action messages across our networks, relatives, neighbors, fellow youths, friends and colleagues. We need to work together and make sure that all our socio-economic sectors are climate-proofed in our quest to attain a climate-resilient and low-carbon Zimbabwe. I want to thank my team for organizing this important event in partnership with youth organizations, making sure relevant stakeholders are invited. Special mention goes to UNDP for supporting the Zimbabwean delegation to COY 15 and COP25, as well as supporting this COY 15 Youth Feedback Workshop. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, with these few remarks, it is now my singular honor and privilege to declare this workshop officially opened. I wish you all fruitful deliberations. Asante sana.
Our planet's natural weather patterns are shifting. Expect droughts, floods, hurricanes, and then there are the record levels of waste, pollution, and plastic that are choking our...
Why do you think youth participation on climate change is key?
Youth participation in climate change is quite key because young people constitute most of the demography the global population as well as national population. It's evident, and we all know about it. And also, young people are the most hit by climate change impacts globally at local level or international level. So there is need for somebody who can respond to these challenges. So who is the rightful person to respond to this, if not the person who's affected? Moreover, young people can still develop a new way of life, which is mitigation, reducing of the causes of greenhouse gases emissions, as opposed to the elderly who actually caused climate change. I'm not pinpointing fingers, but I'm just trying to express the difference between, an elderly generation and young people. Young people have the ambition, they can dream, they still have room for dreams, and their vision is not quite distorted by the challenges that they have experienced in their lifetime, because they are still young, so they can still anticipate and aspire for more better things.
Okay. What are you doing about, IR, about it?
So us as young people, we're trying to reduce as much or spread as much awareness as possible, inform other young people nationwide so that they are aware about climate change and its impact, what they are likely to face, and what their behavior is leading upon, and what climate change itself it is, and the challenges that it may impose, and how to mitigate, thus reduce climate change itself, as well as adapt to climate change. For instance, if you are not experiencing droughts or poor yields, you have to understand what it's coming from. So it's our duty as young people to educate our peers. The other thing that we're doing is also advocating, trying to influence decision-making processes in regard to climate change, so that all the policy, national plans, strategies, they mainstream the issues to climate change. So that's what we are trying to do, put our voice every time, represent other young people from periphery and marginalized areas. The other thing that we are doing as young people is we're trying to implement best practices that are exemplary in communities. For instance, if we come to a community and there's no litter transfer center or there's no waste management initiative, so we set up an example that the community can adopt in their homes or in other surrounding communities. Those are some of the things that we're doing. We're teaching on climate smart agriculture. We're practicing, conservation, trying to protect biodiversity and wildlife within the national park, within our communities and wetlands that surrounds us.
Okay. What do you think we should do as Zimbabwean youth to be at par with our counterparts in other parts of the world?
Well, you'll be surprised that other countries, they have actually young people from a tender age that are actually involved in climate change issues. So we need to educate young people from a young age, make it their responsibility, instill knowledge among themselves, so that they understand it fully and they believe in it, so that whatever action that they're doing, a day-to-day way of lifestyle, they start thinking of a way to solve climate change. That way, then there will be more innovations and ways to tackle climate change impacts. But in terms of influencing, I might say that the few young people in Zimbabwe that are involved, they are quite engaged in trying to influence as much as they can. We have young people in the young constituency of the UNFCCC. We have young people part of large organizations at the 8-Day Network that I work for. So these are some of the things that we need to start promoting and making sure that we capacitate our fellow peers so that they are at the same level.
Okay. I wanted to ask any regional best practice that you can, tell the people of the youth of Zimbabwe to copy, like South Africa, Botswana. What are the young people in those countries doing?
Well, other young people, they are quite engaged in terms of agriculture. And if you go to Kenya, there is high level of agricultural projects. Some have started knowledge hubs within their countries, where you get information on food security, on how to, to produce certain commodities, adapting to the climatic conditions that they have. For instance, moving to small grain crops. In Malawi, we have issue of fish, aquaculture. So those are some of the things that we need to adopt as a country, start doing fish farming. I know in Zimbabwe most of the things that we do is wild catch of fish in the rivers, but those are some of the things that we have to start resorting to. There are issues also of renewable energy. As Zimbabwe, we have to start looking into the issue of producing, from fitting a solar panel to producing panels, amongst many other things that we have to do. So those are some of the things that we need to start engaging on.
Okay. How much is climate change affecting you as youth?
Well, climate change is affecting us quite deeply. Our yields has changed, our water patterns has changed, our health itself is being affected because of the high temperatures that we are currently experiencing. And then we have issues to do with conflict. When you start having these shortages of resources, it creates fractions and friction amongst people that are living together, and also the ability to relate to what's currently happening. At times you don't even know if it's climate change or what it is a result of. So we need to look into that as well.
Okay. Now we have talked about the climate change. What can you, in summary, what can you see at the low-hanging fruits or opportunities for the youth?
Yeah, so like we were saying, that there are some things that we need to copy. So climate change, because of the uncertainty that it provides, we have opportunities now to start looking in how best can we mitigate climate change in whatever spheres that we're doing. We are now expanding it. If I say you are a farmer, now you're looking at the best climate smart practices within your farm. So you're looking at maybe producing with renewable energy, which means you reduce what? You reduce your cost, you reduce your consumption of energy, amongst many other things. There is room for us to come up with adequate innovations on how to adapt to the impacts of climate change as well. So those are the opportunities that are there. For instance, what technologies can we have in order to harvest water, to conserve wildlife, to start doing all the climate proof initiatives.
Yeah, it includes honey processing, right? Honey processing.
Yes, all those type of initiatives, honey aquaculture, honey processes, apiculture, almost everything. Right now we have also Pumbudza going through as well as part of the initiatives that are being put up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mandu.
I'm really not seeing young people. We are not visible on this important issue. I want to see more of such platforms, not just workshops, but on the ground. If you had, as I mentioned, we have quite a number of programs. For instance, the $26.6 million US dollars, which is really mainly to strengthen adaptation in rural communities. That's where I want to see young people rising up to say we can champion, we can spearhead implementation of these projects. We can't afford to be a complaining coalition that other people are doing business unsustainably. Let's lead by example in showing what we mean by doing our business in a climate-friendly environment. When I came in, because of my natural attachment to youth issues, I asked young people who were attachees in the climate change department. They ran away. I don't know whether their terms have expired. I asked them to come up with a proposal for mainstreaming young people in climate change programs, particularly mitigation and adaptation. They had a few meetings. They gave me an initial feedback, which I kind of, I think I was a bit thorough on it, and they thought, they will never please me, and they disappeared. So I'm leaving this to you. As a collective, it might not be the outcome of this workshop, because this has its own objectives. To say, let us come up with a robust proposal, which I commit that I will make them implement, where we will make sure that young people are at the center of climate change programs, be it mitigation or adaptation. How do we see young people play a prominent role in climate change programs? I know Elizabeth once did say, where is she? I owe her some response on a green economy. I still have that proposal. Maybe you can subject it to your colleagues, interrogate it. I had really not given it enough time. I want to acknowledge that. But she had a brilliant proposal on how we can begin to support business ventures by young people that are greening the environment, that have a positive impact on the environment. So I'm keen to hear, to get your thoughts from your diverse backgrounds, which I heard today, on what you think government can do, maybe working with the private sector and other partners to make sure that we streamline the involvement of young people in climate change related programs, as well as greening our economy. And lastly, I know you was going to announce it, but I have announced it. Those who are in Bulawayo next week, Thursday, but most importantly Friday, we will be having a green green climate tourism in Indaba. I'll be very disappointed if there are no young people there who will come maybe with the intention of venturing into tourism, but also contributing into how our tourism can lead by example in being a green business. And where has he gone, Mandu? He has also highlighted that the same weekend they will be having something in Lake Chiwero. I think I'll be joining you on Sunday there. My office, as well as my ministry, because my office is open, my ministry is very open to you, everyone, young people. If she was honest, she was going to tell you when she invited me to attend this function. And when she did so, she didn't think I will make it. It was yesterday. But I had to say within that very busy schedule, we cannot miss an opportunity to interact with young people. So I want to thank you for the invitation and also for bringing that proposal before the end of October. Thank you so much. Well, there is the issue of the discriminatory criteria in the grant setup. So I will have two approaches to this response. The first one being that I think we might need to look where, as government, we have influence or leeway to see how best we can make it a bit friendly to young people or to startups. I know in most cases these grants are coming from partners who might also prescribe how these grants should be dispersed, which leads me to my second part. You know, you always have a dilemma, because when you avail a facility, at the back of your mind you are saying there is someone who might want to take chances. How do I make sure that this is utilized effectively and it helps in achieving the objectives for which the grant is established? And the easiest is to say, I don't want someone who is starting to do this from my grant. Let me see if someone has done something related to what I want them to do. Then I know these are serious people. So that is the dilemma we face as young people when we start these initiatives. But I think in platforms like this, and when we tell each other the truth, it's easier to say, how can we help each other? Maybe form collaborations or coalitions where if one organization has done one or two such projects, you come with your own to partner them. And the next application you'll be having reference that you have done something. So we might identify this as a major loophole, but I'm saying let's look at the opportunity there, especially when we are able to meet like this from different organizations. I think we can find a way of working around it, because I think it will be more difficult to change the requirements than it is to form coalitions and partnerships that can help us to access the funding. But as a department, where possible, in a number of these facilities that you have, you at least know some of them. I believe most of them are probably registered or affiliated with you. So at least you have that database, which should be a cushion to say these are not chancers. They are people that you have walked the journey with. So let's find a way of considering them and engaging them. I believe that's the best way motivate and grow their influence in communities. Then the issue of notifying people. You see, again, I'll have two approaches to the response. The first one is that if you are in Hwange and we have our departments there and they don't know you are there, who is to blame? But if they know you are there and they don't invite you for these critical meetings, then they are in trouble. Because when we go, our approach, especially this year up to the end of the year, is to engage as many people as possible. For me, it's both a learning experience but as well as policy articulation process. So we want to meet as many people as possible, and certainly for me, young people. And I am hoping that part of what you will recommend is how you want the ministry to engage with various youth stakeholders in issues to do with the ministry. So that it could be up to you as young people to say we might create a page where we all are and we are interacting with the ministry either fortnightly, weekly or monthly to see what the programs are for the coming month, what the programs were for the previous. We discuss the issues, what are the emerging issues. If I was not in this seat and I was there, that was part of what I was going to come up with. Because it's critical. I'm hoping that those who are coming from the ministry with me have taken note of the taking part. Unfortunately, technology has overtaken me. But yeah, wherever we are going, as I've already highlighted in Bulawayo next week, Lake Chivero, then I'm in Hwange, 3 to 6 or 4 to 6, the Wednesday to Friday. We are in Hwange, Vic Falls and Binga, forestry issues, but together with other issues. I hope they will start taking from now on. Lisa, I think you were highlighting as the leader you are, what you are going to do. So I'm keen to see us reaching out more to the periphery areas. Let's be visible right through. Let them know that there are young people who are able to collect this information in boring state, but make it more interesting to them, make it more appealing or more reasonable and meaningful to them. What does it mean to plant a tree? It took me time to understand this whole global warming thing, because when you ask Jakarta to come and explain, expect science and all that. So I at least now understand the English side of it. So I think let us be the conduits to our young people who then take this important information through. Flagship projects. I don't like shifting blame to people. I want people to agree on what has to be done. What flagship projects have young people brought to the minister to brag about? So, let us agree that this is our responsibility, all of us. I'm happy to hear more. Like I said, I've been here, I'll be 1 year in November, I think 8 or so. But I'm meeting most of you for the first time. It's better late than never. And I've also said that as a ministry, we are there for you. We cannot complain about a youth desk when we have, I'm no longer a young minister. So let's utilize these opportunities to exchange the projects that are being run and how we see government coming in, how we can support those initiatives that you are running with. This Green Expo, who is organizing it, and does it involve government at all, the ministry at all in the preparations? I could be wrong, but I think I'm hearing it here. Are you working with the departments in environment and in climate change? Yes. Okay, so if that's the case, maybe they are still to brief me. I also do appreciate that at times they go for more than a month just trying to get me in the office. breaking rights. I would love to break. Yeah, I would love to take part of your credit in terms of what you are doing. So let's work together on that. I think for now, let's not look at why no one has participated for the past 7 years. It might get us, we might lose focus. Let's look at how we can get more government involvement and more young people involved in government programs going forward. I think that will help us quite a lot. I think that summarizes the response. Colleagues, thank you so much.